Okay, welcome to this session. Now we have started our training for data analysis. The first thing, in case you want to come up with pivot tables, I say that pivot tables are good in data analysis using Excel, but how do we access it? So when you hear the word pivot table, so that means you must have a table. So make sure your data is in a what? In a table. So how can you be able to convert this huge data set into a table? There is a quickest way of doing it. Let me type it here. If you press a combination of Control plus Control and T, you are able to create a table. That is the easiest way of coming up with a table in a huge data set. So this is the combination of that. You press Control, then the T button on your keyboard, you are able to come up with a table. So with that being said, now what you do, you go and click on your data set. You can just choose like one cell and then you press Control T. It is going to come and it's going to highlight our entire sheet, and then they're going to ask us where is the data for your table. If we click on OK, our data is now converted into a table. Okay, so after that, friends, if you feel it's better, you put it in the chat room. The team will be able to let me know if we have one. So now our data is in what? Is in the table. So how do we access pivot tables? To access pivot tables, we go and click on Insert. You click on Insert, and then you see the word pivot table. So it is going to rename our table as table 1, and then it is going to ask us this question. There are just two questions. Is it table 1? If it's not, then you choose a different one, or you can choose where you want a pivot table to be placed. You can choose a new worksheet and then you click OK. So this is our pivot table. So now we're going to spend much of our time learning all these variables. There are quite many. So here there is a pivot table where we are going to place our data, but this side we have our columns. These are the columns for our data sets. From our data set, all the columns, date, region. So it depends on what you want to report on, but there are quite many. So if they ask you sales by region, so now let me take something. Let me take a screenshot. Let me snip this such that I'm able to explain it more clearly to you, such that you're able to understand. Let me take a screenshot of this. I'm just taking a screenshot. To take a screenshot, you can use the snipping tool. I don't know why mine is misbehaving. Okay, so now I'm going to just take a screenshot. I can just click on new. I'm going to take it this side. Okay, let me take a screenshot of this last part. So now this side where we are having the word pivot fields on the right hand side, we have our columns and we have numerous fields down. Here, if we are able to see the word filters, the word columns, the word rows, the word values. So now let us understand one by one. Let me maximize my screen. So now let's start with let us start with this, with filters. So let us say they want you to filter. Filtering is like selecting or choosing. It's like filtering is like getting something out of maybe different things. Maybe you want to select, you have the months from Jan to May, but you're interested in knowing only Jan. That is filtering. Then another one, it is rows. Rows. So if you want your data to be in rows like this, these are rows. That's when you can be able to choose rows. And values. Anything related to values, like values, these are numbers, maybe quantity. So you put it under values. And then columns, if you want it to be like this, that's when you can be able to use columns. So just drag and drop. So now let us go back to our Excel. Maybe we see this practically. So now let us assume they want you to report sales by region. So how do we do that? So that means we need to have the regions and we need to have the sales value. But what are the columns? So you can go back to our data set. If you want to report this, we shall choose the regions column and then also the total price column. So that means we are able to see the what? The revenue. But we need to ask ourselves, here we have the quantity, and then also we have what we call the price. So this is just the price. So this is how much was sold at this price. So we need to come up with a column for revenue. Revenue we shall just multiply. So at the end of this we can have another column and we call it maybe sales. Sorry, we can create it this side. We can come up with a column and we call it sales, or we can even have it within. You can put it anywhere as long as you'll be able to understand. Let me just put it just besides that, and I call it sales revenue. So to insert another column, we can just click on the column header that you want. Then you right click, you click on insert, and then it will come up with a new column. So we are going to give it a name as we are going to call it sales. We are going to call it sales value or sales revenue. So what is the formula? I think it is the simplest one. You're going to say equal sign how much was sold, times if at all times the unit price. So if at all it is not what? It's not given. That's when you can be able to come up with revenue. Just multiply with the quantity times the unit price, which is this column. So that's why we are having that total price as our sales revenue. So if you're unfamiliar with this total price, you can come up with sales revenue column, or you can just come and rename this and you call it sales revenue. So now we have been able to see that this is our sales value, the total price. So they just multiplied. So if you want to delete that, you can just right click on it and then you click on delete, or you can leave it there. So now instead of total price, let us call it sales value or sales revenue, as long as you can be able to understand it. So we go back our pivot table. This is sheet 4. We want to report sales by region. Report that we need the regions column, so you can search for it, and then you ask yourself, where am I going to place it? So if you want to place it somewhere, you can just go and drop it under rows. That's why they will come like this. These are rows. They are in rows. So if you want value, you can also put that column, but where are you going to put it? Is it still total price? I don't know. Let me see. I think it is still total price. It has not yet changed. Okay, so now we can leave it as that, but this is what we have so far. We have sales by region. So if you put it this side and maybe you change the regions, we are just dragging and dropping. If you put it under columns, it is going to change like in column, but if you want it this side in rows, it can be like that. Hope you have been able to understand that. Okay, let us do another example. If we put filters, they'll go up our pivot table. Okay, so we are able to select the sales representative or the sales officers. If you want to read about maybe Alice or Bob, you can choose Bob. This is the sales revenue from Bob. So if you want to know maybe from all, can choose all. That is filtering. So before we move to our next agenda item, or maybe going into this, I want to make sure at least we are somewhere. Let me go back to you, my audience. If you have any question, please, this is the best time for you to ask before we proceed. You know, teaching online is not something that is easy. You must make sure that you are at the same page with the people you're presenting to. Friends, are we lost? Are we understanding? I just want to get the feedback from you, whether we are following. Are we following? Is it maybe at the first time it might not be exciting? Yeah, in everything there's always the first time. Hey, I've not been seeing your screen from what you have been demonstrating, listening. I am, but I'm lost from the start. So if possible, you can at least hear me out and try to repeat. Okay, usually what happens when we are using maybe something like a Google Meet, your network can be an issue. So I want to first confirm, was it a general problem or it happened to only Joyce? You mean like all of you we are not seeing my screen? So in case it happens to you individually, what you can do it is to try leaving the meeting and come back again. Kwesiga, I didn't get you. Maybe you can unmute and say maybe you are able to see the screen or not. Was it?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sapa, for this very about us training. It is very interesting. Yeah, the screen to some extent, it's very good, but it later quite stabilized. But maybe one comment from me, you are a little bit faster now to some of us who are really on the Excel, very faster in analysis. I think you kind of getting lost. So if it's possible, if it's not delaying you, sir, maybe you can just grab a little step if you don't mind. But otherwise, so far it is good and it is moving smoothly and we really appreciate. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you for that feedback. You know, when you're teaching your own song, I don't know what you can get, but when you're teaching your own song, sometimes you can get excited or you can fall in love with what you're teaching. But repeating it's not my problem, I can do so. But in case you don't get it for the first time, we are going to spend much of our time on pivot tables. So let me take several steps back. Let me do this. We go back from the beginning. So I said to turn this huge data set into a table, we use a combination of control plus T. Once you choose a cell like this, and then you press a combination of control plus T, you can convert it into. So I said, why are we using a table? So pivot tables, as we are the word pivot, there must be a table or a data source or a data model that where you can be able to use, in which you can be able to use to come up with your data. So now, to go pivot tables, you go to insert, you choose pivot table, it will select automatically, then new worksheet, you just click OK, and then it will load as empty. So now, we need to understand this. What are filters? Filters in case you want to pick something out of many, out of the crowd, maybe something. Columns, if you want to report your data in columns. Do you want rows or values? Values, numerical figures, they go this side. Non-numerical, like data in like names, what, they go under either rows or in columns. So all in columns. So now, if you want to report sales by sales officers, so you need to know that column. So you can just drag and drop it in under the rows field. And what else do you want? You want to report by sales value. You can just search for it. Sales value. So now we are here. We are here. So now this data, the table is not meaningful, right? What do you need to do? This is the match from this person. You have to format your data a little bit. Let's say you don't want these decimal places. If you want to remove them, you can just go and click on home, and then you can just remove decimal places like that. You click here. You can put commas or 1,000 separators, and then you remove commas. Sorry, decimal places, just like that. Okay, we are now just formatting our table to be meaningful. So it is having row labels. We don't know what is row labels. So if you want it to represent what you want, maybe you want to have, instead of row labels, we call it sales persons or sales person. So you can just go and click on design. Okay, then you choose what we call the report layout. You make it. There are many. There is show in a compact form, there is show in outline form, but we usually use what we call tabular. The moment you do that, it is going to change. So there are numerous pivot tables or designs that you can be able to use. So if you're a girl, you can choose that. If you are a man, you can choose that color. Okay, so you can choose many as you want. So there are different designs that you can be able to use to make sure that to make sure that you have a good reporting. So if that is interesting you and your bosses are okay with it, actually most of the things you must be able to understand whom are you reporting to. So whom are you reporting to is very important. So if it's an organization like MTN, they don't want this color. So if it is something like maybe you're reporting about a certain organization, they have their colors. So make sure are very, very, very sensitive. Okay, so you can choose that. If we go back, I have had something from maybe that team. What was it? What did I miss? I had something. Maybe Miss Lily and Brenda. Maybe if there's something, you can be able to let me know. Please, if there's something, please let me know. Okay, now let us go back. I think there's nothing from the team. So this is the pivot table. At least now you can be able to analyze that from Alice we have this match. Alice was able to make this and this. Okay. From Diana, please, if there's a question, just unmute yourself. Since we are very few on the call, I can be able to take it on. Just unmute and speak. Hello, do you have any question?
Yes, good evening, sir.
How are you?
I'm alright. Just inquiring as someone if our lectures being recorded so that we can be able to visit it later and do more practice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I tried. Okay, I didn't try, but I said at the beginning I was able to record it. I don't know whether it is being recorded successfully, but hopefully. Okay, but we are going to be spending much of our time on this. We're able to see that from Diana, this is how much. So if they want to report, if you want to report this, maybe in the maybe in a pie chart, in a what, in a graph, or you want to show a trend, so you can always do that. So now if you want to come up with charts, you can just go to insert. Okay, then you go to and click on pivot chart. So there are many. You can choose many. There's column, there's line chart, pie chart, bar chart, among many. So you can choose maybe column graph. There's clustered, there is stacked column, there is stacked column 100%. So you can choose that and then you report. So it is going to be like this. So you can report this. So bosses, there are some bosses who can be interested in the figures, some interested in the visuals. So if you look at this bar, you can just tell. Okay. So we shall learn how we can be able to format the pivot these graphs. But if you want to do so, you can just go and click on design. There are numerous designs that you can be able to use. There is this, there is that. Okay, so there are quite many that you can be able to use to make a good impression. So uh, a visual or an image is worth 1,000 words. So it is very important to visualize our data. So now let us first stop on this step of data analysis. We shall go ahead and come up with what we call what we call a data visualization. So now let us spend much time on analysis. So let us come up with another pivot table. So I said you don't need to repeat the same process as long as you are in this file with your data set. So you can just come and click on an empty cell. You go and click on insert pivot table, and then it is going to ask for a data range. For data range, you can just come and pick this entire sheet. So you can just come and say Control A. It is going to just say table 1 existing sheet. You can leave it to that, and then you just click OK. Pivot table 3 is going to come. Why 3? Because there's one that we had deleted from the same data set. So maybe if you want to report sales trend, maybe by month, by what, so that's when we can be able to use columns. So for columns, that means we need a date. We can put it there. Date can be in years, it can be in quarters. So maybe if we are interested in years, that means we need to return. To return, just drag and drop it the other side where you got it from. We are just interested in the years. We can leave it that to that. We don't want the date. Maybe I think we have 2023, 2025. I think we can leave it to that. But they can give you dates, sorry, that day wise. They can give you month wise. They can give you a lot. So you just need to select what you want. If it maybe you want reports sales each year, that's when you can be able to choose years. So the moment you click on date is huge. It can mean the date, can mean the month, it can mean a week. So you go ahead and say you can say maybe sales revenue. Okay, and then you put it under that. So I said to format our pivot table. It is showing column labels. What is that? So you go to design, you say report format, show in tabular. You can choose to remove subtotals in case they are there. So that is it. This is how much from in this year of 2023 we made ourselves of this, and in this year it is this. So if you want to format the data, you can save, we can put some commas, we can remove the decimal places as that. So now even we can even change the what, we can even change the pivot table design. Just go to design and then you choose a different design. Maybe you want this. Okay, so now the bosses are able to tell, or you are able to tell it to your bosses that in this year 2023 we made the sales of this. But that's why data analysis is very important. You cannot, with this you cannot tell really. This is huge. You cannot report to your boss like this, that this is the data that we have. That is useless. They need to know, they need to make informed decisions. That's why data analysis is something that is very, very important. They can ask you, is there growth or not? So if you make a comparison between 2023, 2024, 2025, is there growth or not? So if there is no growth, what can you do? So if you look at 2025, it is 910,168. 2024, it is this much, I think there is a degrowth in our sales value. So what does this mean? You need to tell. For instance, if maybe this was a month of January, we have had elections in our country. So when you're reporting, how are you going to tell your bosses? You can say in the month of Jan, compared to the month of Jan 2025, 2024, 2025, maybe 2026, we had too many holidays and we are not able to sell. And that maybe we had elections, a lot of factors. So that's it. Okay? So now let us assume your bosses are interested in knowing where to invest, where do we need to put our money, where do we need to put focus, like which region, where are we performing well, where are we not performing. So we need to come up with a visual or a pivot table that is going to report on regions. If you want to know the sales by region, so I say to come up with a pivot table. If you have your data set already, just go and click on insert. After that, you choose pivot table. Then they are going to ask for table range. Our table range is already here, so we are going to just press Ctrl A to highlight the entire sheet, and then we click OK, and then our pivot table 4 is going to come as empty. So now we want to report sales by region. We shall say we need the region column, okay, and then we need the we need the sales value. How much are we getting from each region? Okay, so we can format our data. You cannot just report like this. You have to format it. You put some commas or 1,000 separator like that. So you're able to tell that where are we earning. So I wanted to stop here, but let me show you something that is very important. So I said to design it or to format our pivot table, you go to design, we go to report layout, and then we choose show in tabular. So this is central region, and you cannot tell if there are many regions. You cannot just tell, so it is very important to visualize your data. So you can just go and click on insert, or before that, we can be able to know the percentage contribution per region on this grand total of 4,379,992. So what is the percentage contribution from each region? So we are able to know maybe central it is 10%, east it is this. So what is that? So now what you do, you can add on another, you can just make another addition on the values. You make it to like this. I just dragged and dropped the same thing under the sales value field. So now it is the same thing. So now if you want to know the percentage contribution, you can just right click on that on the last one. You click on the right, just right click, and then show values as percentage of the grand total. So it has changed. So here with percentages you can be able to tell that from which one it is a little bit more compared to others. I think it is Eastern with 20%. So it's not that, it is North by 22%. I think this is the performing one. So you can even rename a pivot table column. You can just double click on it, you can do that, and then you just rename the column, and then you call it percentage contribution, and then you just click Okay, so this can make a good analysis out of your reporting. So friends, data analysis is something that is very huge, and as we learn, as we have more sessions like this, we shall be able to understand more of these things in detail. So we are going to spend much of our time in pivot tables, looking at pivot tables. What is there? What do we need? If they tell you what is the top 1%. So lastly, as we close this class, I don't want to teach for so long. This is our very first class. We shall be repeating this over and over again. So if you click on, we want to come up with maybe another pivot table. We want to know who reports to. We are able to see different regional managers for sales officers, but we want to know who reports to. How many does this person? How many sales officers are managed by? So that's when you can be able to say, maybe to repeat this. If you want another pivot table, you just go to insert and then in sheet 1, you select any cell, Control A to give you table 1. So we want sales officers and then regional managers. We shall start with region managers. We drop it there, and then we drop another one, and that is sales officers. So it's a little bit funny. Why? We have not formatted it. So what do we need to do? We just need to go to design, and then we say report layout tabular. So we are able to see now it is showing us subtotals. It is showing us subtotals. We can choose to remove them. We can say here this side is subtotals, don't show subtotals. So we are able to see these are the sales officers who reports to Cameroon, sales officers who report to Eric, Raihan, Sophie, as that. If you want to know their revenue, you can just say we can just add another value or column for values, and then we put it under values. So it is just like that. So I want to thank you for listening to me. My name is Robert Kawalia. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sure we are not 100% on the same page, but I believe as we learn, as we have more sessions, you'll be able to catch everything. We shall be repeating this tomorrow, and more new things to come on board. Thank you once again. Back to you for questions.